doing that already.
Report on what?
I'm doing that. I'm doing that
Report.
already. Thank you for
Okay.
the
Okay.
reminder. Yes.
Oh,
Okay. So again, an overview, an easy one, hopefully for everybody, is going to be an introductory session about software localization. It is one of the very interesting topics in translation studies because we are dealing with technology, and as you know, technology is everywhere. Everybody has a personal computer, and almost everybody has a smartphone. And we talk about software localization, we're talking about producing and reproducing these kind of software in other languages. So let's start with the general definition of localization. What does localization mean? Localization, in a nutshell, it means adapting a product, such as application, a website, a video game, or a service to a new language and locale. So when we talk about localization, we're talking about two things. The first one is the language, and the second one is locale. And locale here is very important and very crucial. So localization goes beyond the linguistic transfer of the actual linguistic assets of a specific product, such as software or a website, and of course takes care of other aspects such as visuals, layout, colors, and many other things. Um, Let's give an overview of the different types of localization. When the word localization or software localization is mentioned, we should think at least about three different things. The first one is website localization. We use it every day. We access websites in different languages, in Arabic, in Indonesian, or in English, or in any other language that we know. The second type is software localization. It's related to computer programs. And the last type is video game localization. In this presentation, I'm not going to go over mobile application localization because it's going to be overwhelming to talk about everything in one session. Let's go over the first type, which is web localization. Web localization, in easy words or in simple words, is the process of adapting an existing website to a local language and culture in the target market. Different companies are trying to enter new markets, trying to send their products and sell their products in different languages and in different countries. So the first way to do this is by providing a localized version of their websites. When we talk about web localization, we usually talk about at least three levels of localization. The first level or zero level, it's not one of the levels basically because we don't have localization. It's called level zero, where there is no localization provided for the website in the target market. Level one, it includes translation of the linguistic content only, where you have touch or a flavor of language. This is the second or the first level. The second level of localization, which is level two, it includes content translation plus layout localization. In the coming slides, things will be clear, I promise. When we talk about layout localization, we talk about the way users like to navigate their website. For example, the way Arabs would like their website is completely different from the way a Japanese user would love to see websites in Japanese. And this will be clear in a minute. The second level of localization, where we have full localization, let's call it, where content is translated into the target language, the layout is localized, and of course, the images of the source website are replaced with images from the target language. Let's start with the zero level. Zero level, I witnessed zero level in, well, I'm going to explain the levels by basically navigating Starbucks website. Starbucks is one of the well-known coffee shops in the world. So this screenshot was taken from the American website. And now I'm going to show you the first level of localization or the zero level of localization, where Starbucks open their website or their business or their shops in Indonesia, as you can see here. However, they do not provide Indonesian translation to the content of their website. So this level of localization is called zero localization. There are several reasons why companies adopt this kind of localization level. Second level of localization, where we have, or this can be clearly noticed on the Canadian website of Starbucks, where we have the English website, and they have the translation of the English website into French. So they have the same layout, the same images, the same exact everything. However, the language is different, as you can see here. When websites are translated, not localized, but translated, because localization would include other aspects such as images, layout, and maybe visuals. When websites are translated, the translators try to add a kind of local flavor to the translation of the website. So this is level one, which is the content translation of the website, where we don't have localization. Level two, content plus layout, and this is seen on the Japanese website of Starbucks, where you have a different layout. It might be crowded for some users. However, it is the way Japanese people would love to navigate websites in their native language. So as you can see here, we have the same exact occasion, which is holidays, season, and you can see that on the Japanese website. However, we have different layout and the content is completely different. Level 3 localization includes, as I mentioned, content translation, interface or layout localization, and plus images are replaced with images from the target language. This is the website from Saudi Arabia, or Starbucks in Saudi Arabia. As you know, in Saudi Arabia, they do not celebrate Christmas. So they try to add images to the website from that country, where we have a Saudi barista here. His name is Abdulillah, written in English and Arabic. And we have a lady here wearing abaya, the black gown, let's say, handing or is buying a cup of frappuccino or something, as you can see. So this is the deepest level of localization, whereas you can notice here, the menu is aligned to the right, which is something that Arab users would expect in the Arabic website. So as you can see, the target website has the touch, the feel, the flavor, and almost everything in the target language and the target culture. This is the first type of localization, which is web localization. Now moving to the second type of localization, which is software localization. And basically it is the adaptation of a software product, such as computer programs or operating system, to a specific locale's language, culture, and legal requirements. And here legal requirements is a very important aspect in software localization. And when we talk about software localization or computer application localization, we're not talking about one thing that is localized. We're talking about different components. So let's think about the main components of a software. The first thing that we have in a software is a user interface, which is the thing that you usually encounter when you open an application on a PC. This is, for example, the user interface of the notepad in Arabic. We also have menus, as you can see here, different menus, and every menu provides set of functionalities that a user can use in order to execute a specific task. We also have pop-up messages. For example, the message that we usually get when we close a document: do you want to save the changes? And then you decide whether to save, cancel, or exit without saving the document. And the last thing in any software product, or in most of the software products, is what we call help files, which provide information on how to use the software. I want to highlight here that when a software is localized into a specific language, we're not basically producing a target software to fit every locale. So again, locale is very crucial at this point. I'm going to show you an example from Windows 8. I don't know if you know that the Arab country contains 22 countries. In the Arab world, we have 22 countries, and every country or most of the countries have their own local currency, date format, for example, or calendars. For example, in Jordan, we use the Gregorian calendar, the translated one. In Saudi Arabia, they use the Hijri calendar. In Egypt, they use the borrowed calendar from the Western calendar. Let me show you what I mean. So when Windows was localized into Arabic, the localized version of Windows produced different versions of the local settings of the operating system. Let me show you what I mean. I took this one, the first one here, from the Egyptian version of Windows. Date is formatted like the following. It shows the day and the borrowed month from English. So we have the word November here. It's the same exact word in English. See, because in Egypt, they use these months, but they are borrowed. They are written in Arabic, but they are basically English. So they use November, September, etc., etc. So Windows basically localized their version into Egyptian locale using the way months are basically translated in that specific locale. The second one is taken from Saudi Arabia. We have the Hijri date. See? So this is the year in Hijri date. So we have Rabi' al-Awwal, which is one of the months in the Hijri calendar. And as you can see, the way the month is divided, the date is divided, we have the day, the month, and the year. This is the Hijri calendar. And again, we have the same exact language. However, we have different locales. So we ended up with different way of formatting the calendar in the target language. In Jordan, for example, we use a different type of calendar, let's say, or different layout and different ways to call months. So we have Tishrin al-Thani. Unfortunately, I can't provide examples from Indonesian or Bahasa Indonesia, unfortunately. So I'm trying to provide examples from the languages that I know and try to make it as clear as possible. Now let's move to the third type of localization, which is called video game localization. And it is one of the complicated localization endeavors. Video game localization includes at least 3 different levels. We have partial localization, full localization, and of course we have the zero localization that we mentioned. A video game includes at least 3 different assets, textual assets. We have like the language itself, art assets, the images inside the game. We also have audio and cinematics. Cinematics are like video clips played during the game, and we're talking about console games here. So when a game is localized into a target language, a localizer should provide localization to these 3 different assets. This is a screenshot taken from one of the video games on Xbox. Let me show you the main components here. So we have subtitles here, because in video games or some video games, we have conversations between characters, as you can see. The dialogue is in English, but the subtitles are provided in Arabic, as you can see here. We also have other textual elements on the screen, such as the quest that you are trying to execute and instructions on the screen. These are saved in different destinations inside the game. So when the localizer works on localizing a video game, he should be able to execute the localization task properly, and he has to be able to go and retrieve the linguistic material from the video game. Oh, by the way, localization is one of the tasks in the market that are required almost in every country, and they pay localizers really well. Now I'm going to show you some issues that localizers usually take into consideration, or localization testers take into consideration when they look at a localized software. Number one, we have money or currency, let's say. For example, if you are localizing a website from English into Indonesian, I think you should change in the currency. For example, if you are translating or localizing an online store for a specific company, you have to make sure that you include in your localization the currency of the target locale. Time is also very important. Some nations would use the 24-hour type of time. Others use the 12-hour format. Date is also important. As you know, we have different ways to write dates. For example, this is the American format, where we have month, and then we have day, and after that we have the year. But in the British or European, we have day, then month, and after that we have year. It's very important to pay particular attention to details when you localize software applications into target language and target culture, because it would be misleading. For example, if you don't know how the target culture uses dates, or they format the way they format dates in their language and their culture. Addresses are also crucial. You should be able to not translate addresses, but localize them in the target language, because we have different ways of writing addresses depending on the locale and depending on the country. Other issues that we should focus on, and I think you should also, when you visit a localized website or when you use a localized application, you might look at these things such as symbols. For example, or the graphics. In the Arab world, they usually, or in some parts of the Arab world, they usually use the red crescent, al-hilal al-ahmar, while in Western countries, they use the red cross. So two different symbols to denote almost the same concept. So localizers should pay particular attention to these aspects. Colors are very important when we localize. It's not part of the language, but it's part of the culture. For example, one of the companies, or American companies, they wanted to open their business in China. So they localized their website into Chinese. The website was all in black, which connotates sophistication in the United States and the American culture. But when the website was localized into Chinese, maintaining the same exact color, that was not received well by the Chinese people, because in the Chinese culture, the color black is associated with destruction, evil, profanity, disasters, and negative. It has negative connotations. So again, it's not part of the language, however, it's part of the culture. And this is basically the work of the localizer and the job of the localizer to know how to localize not only the language, but also every other aspect in the software product. This is about like colors and symbols and things that are not very complicated, but we have some issues that are very complex in a localization. This includes writing system, characters, Unicode, or coding, document structure. For example, this interface or this screenshot was taken from one of the well-known video games, and I myself downloaded this from the Xbox store. But as you can see, those who know Arabic, letters in Arabic or in Arabic are written with connected script, like the script in Arabic should be connected. Just 1 second. Okay. But in the video game, as you can see, letters are disconnected, and it's really difficult for Arab gamers to read the Arabic version or the Arabic script on the video game. So this tells us that there are some aspects that go beyond the linguistic transfer of the linguistic components of the software. And one of them is definitely the writing system and localizers, or not only localizers, but also software developers should be able to actually fix such problems. Now, after talking about types of software localization and the issues, I'm going to go now to the point 0 to talk about localization again and how localization is initiated in companies or software companies. When we talk about localization, we should talk about 4 main concepts or 4 main stages. The first one is called globalization. Globalization is the big umbrella of GILT approach that I'm going to explain in the coming slides. The second level or the second strategy is called internationalization. And after that, we have localization and then translation. Let's start with the first one. So if a company decides to go global and sell their products or software products in another country, so they have to take what we call a globalization approach, which includes a decision and a set of activities. So globalization is basically a decision by the decision makers in a specific company that they want to go global and they want to sell their products and maybe services in a target language. So once the decision is made, then they move to internationalization strategy, which is basically making their products as flexible as possible. In what sense? In the sense that their software or their services will be able to be, or they will be easily adapted to other languages. LISA, which is basically an international association for localization, they define internationalization as what? A strategy by which a company tweaks and it prepares their software products to be easily adapted. What do I mean by this? Let me show you. Now, once the decision is made by the decision makers that they want to go global and they want to sell their products globally, after that, they inform the programmers that they should produce a software that can be easily adapted into other languages. The localization part begins after internationalization. So the localizers will start working on the target product or the target software, which also includes translation. Let me give you an example on the processes that I have just explained. For example, if a specific company or a specific software company wants to sell a software in the Arab world, and they have, of course, they have to translate and localize their software into Arabic. Now, the first thing is the decision, which is the globalization part of the process. They decide, this is the first step. Then they inform software programmers that they have to create a software that can handle right to left language, then can handle cursive script, which is a script written with connected letters. They also should prepare their software to handle mirrored interface. In English websites or English applications, we have language written from left to right. In Arabic, it's the other way around. It's from right to left. So the software itself should be able to accommodate the target language. And they also have to prepare their product to allow button expansion, because sometimes the word okay can be translated using two words in a specific language. So the localizer should be able to expand the button if that is required in the target software. So this is what we call, again, internationalization. So internationalization of the software should take care of the things that I have just mentioned. A real life example is the following. If I want to localize an application and I got this message from that specific application. So 1 second. Again, if I have this software application that needs to be localized into Arabic, if the software does not allow right to left layout, the application will look like this. We have the same exact layout, which does not look Arabic at all. Number two, if cursive script is not supported, we will have disconnected letters in the software application after it's localized. And lastly, if button expansion is not supported, then you will get the following. Can you see the last button here? As you can see, some part of the target button is invisible. As you can see, some part is basically invisible. So in order to fix these problems, software developers should have an internationalization strategy when they write the script or the code of their program. So if the program is internationalized, then we will get a perfect translation where we have connected letters, where we have mirrored interface, as you can see, and where we can expand the buttons in the target application. So internationalization, again, is the process of making a software product adaptable, or as much adaptable as possible. Now let me move to how do they do it, which is a well-known TV show. How do they localize products and software applications into other languages? We have different methods and different ways. Let's start by the most sophisticated one. For example, this is a C language or C programming language code. The most difficult way to localize a software is by working on the software code itself. So this is a software that would print "I love Indonesia" if the user hits enter. if I want to localize this code or this application into Arabic, I should know how to extract localizable parts from the software. So I have to be able to read programming languages. Take a look at this. This is the translation of the code where I only translated this part, which is the translatable part of the software. Just let me run this software on my C+ compiler. Let me share my other screen with you. This is the code that I have just displayed on my screen, as you can see. So if I run this code, I would get this message, I love Indonesia. Now I'm going to run my localized code, which looks like this. I only, again, localize this part. This is my localized software or application in the same programming language, where I only changed this part of the code. I run it, and I get Uhibbu Indonesia in the target language, as you can see. So the first method to localize an app is by localizing the linguistic part of the application in the programming language. And this is very difficult and complicated to do, because sometimes if you delete any variable here or any part of the code may crash, and you will end up with an error in your software. The second way of localizing a software is by providing localizers with spreadsheets, including the source language assets only. And after that, the localizer sends an Excel sheet to the developer, and the developer basically applies the localization to the software. This method is popular, unfortunately. It's problematic because translators will not be able to spot the context of a specific word, because sometimes we have a specific word that may have a specific meaning in the software in that specific location. For example, we have the word history could have different meanings based on their particular place in the software. So spreadsheet is the easiest way and the most convenient way to translate the software. However, it provides decontextualized information to localizers. We also have translation environment tools. People use CAT tools or translation environment tools to translate software. They usually use it to translate HTML websites. Let me show you an example. And I think I just explained this in my previous lecture, where I talked about software localization, where I talked about CAT tools. So now I'm going to show you an HTML code or a website that has been translated using a translation environment tool. Let me show you the source website first. This is the source website. I imported this page to memsource to translate the content into Arabic. And I actually did that. As you can see here, this is my translation. After that, I exported my translation, which looked like this. As you can see, this is the English. This is the English website, and this is the Arabic localized website. We, however, have a problem here. As I mentioned earlier, Arabic is aligned to the right and should be aligned to the right. However, translation environment tools do not do this to the localized version. So the localizer should be able to work with the HTML code and should be able to fix that. So this would tell us that localizers should have at least working knowledge in software and coding. So let me fix the problem using my. So after localizing an HTML website, another level should be done, which is basically so a second. This is the page, and this is the source code of the page. So I'm trying to write a code where I tell the HTML compiler or the HTML browser to change the orientation of the page from left to right to which is direction right to left, and then the language is Arabic. Okay, and I save my work and I go back and open my website, and I got the right orientation, as you can see. That looks like Arabic, because as you know, and as I mentioned, Arabic reads it from right to left. That's basically it. So this is the second method, or the third method to localize a software product, which is by using an HTML, or sorry, a translation environment tool. Let me go back to my slides. Now I'm going to talk about the third or the fourth method, which is called WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get. And this is the best way to localize a software product. And for this, I'm going to use Pasalo, which is localization software. In Pasalo, it works like a translation environment tool where you import the source application. It can read application, and it would retrieve the translatable assets from the source application. It displays the source language assets to the translator to translate, and the translator or the localizer will be able to see what he is doing while he is translating the software. Let me show you what I mean. Now I'm going to switch to Windows. Can you see my Windows screen? Could you please confirm that you can see my Windows?
Yes, you can.
I can see it.
Oh, excellent. So I'm going to show you how localizers work on Pasalo, SDL Pasalo. It's one of the very well-known software applications used to localize software. For example, I have this application. It's called Scribble. So let me open the this is the software, see, where you can just draw things, you can save, do certain things. If you want to translate this software into Arabic, for example, you can use SDL Pasalo to translate the linguistic assets. So you import the software into Pasalo, and Pasalo will display the linguistic content of the software, as you can see here. For example, I have save, close, print preview, etc., etc. And the good thing about WYSIWYG approach is that whatever you do is displayed here. For example, let me translate the Word file into Arabic. As you can see, I will directly get the target text applied on the application, on the target application. Well, it's telling me that there are these segments that I'm translating here are also in other parts of the software. Do you want the software to apply this translation to the other parts? And then I say yes, then it basically copies my translation to that part. See? As you can see here, again, WYSIWYG approach is basically displaying the whatever the localizer is doing live, and the localizer will be able to see what he is doing and what he is translating. Let me show you another thing. For example, text, dialog boxes, which look like this, as you can see, about the program. For example, I want to translate this into Arabic. Okay. For example, because the software, the source software is internationalized, localizers will be able to expand and change in the button size, as you can see. For example, if I have this okay in English, and my Arabic version is longer, see? As you can see, I can expand the button to make it basically look excellent in the target language. One last thing that I should do is what? Who can remind me with it? Can you remember what we should do in Arabic?
Yes, we should align it to be aligned to right to left.
Yes, we have to flip the orientation, and this application allows us to do this. So mirror the dialog, I click yes, and then I have okay in the other part where I have the content or the message here, and then I have the button the other way around, which is, see, this is the way Arabic looks. This is the version that I wanted to translate. This is how it looked, as you can see, and yep. So again, you'll be able to even move things around or even change the whole button and replace it with another button if you think that this would be better for the target culture and target software. Again, the good thing about WYSIWYG approach is that, let me just continue localizing these main menus here. Okay. The good thing about WYSIWYG approach is that you can basically export this software in the target language. So you don't need any programming language in order to apply the translation of that software in the target language. You basically go back to the project. See, show you something. So after you finish the localization of a specific software, you simply go to the project, right-click on it, generate target file, and you'll be able to open the target file easily. And as you can see, I have Arabic and English because I have not finished the whole website, but I still have a problem, right? I have to align the whole thing to the right, and that can be done easily by string settings and advanced, and please mirror the whole application, and thank you. So I export it again. Okay, open it. Boom, everything will be mirrored. And as you can see, now it looks Arabic. However, I have to finish everything. See? Again, so WYSIWYG is the best approach to software localization, where you basically see what you are doing and you can change in the orientation or even the size of the software components. The last part of the lecture will cover the last process in software localization, which is called localization testing. So after the localizer is done with localizing a specific website, game, video game, or application, we have the QA part, which is testing. Testing goes through 3 levels. We test the linguistic components of the software, and after that we have cosmetic testing, and lastly we do functional testing, and after that we either fix issues with the software or we send it to the client. The linguistic testing includes and focuses on transferring the linguistic assets of the application. For example, you have to make sure that you translated everything into the target language and the translation is accurate. And of course, and most importantly, you have consistency in the use of terminology. Because as I mentioned earlier, we have different components. We have interface. We have also pop-up messages, help files, menus. So I have to make sure that I use the equivalent of the word file, for example, in all of the components consistently. So I don't want to use file as malaf, for example, in Arabic, and in the help files, I use another word to refer to the same exact function. So this is a very important aspect of software localization. Again, terminology is a crucial component, and you have to make sure that you are using consistent terminology. Oh, by the way, terminology consistency is not only important in the localized software, but it is very important also in the source application, in the source software. Oh, you can also check hotkeys, how hotkeys are assigned in the target language. You may change, for example, for Windows, I use Ctrl+N+A to select everything in a document. This might change in the target software. So you have to make sure that you are using hotkeys correctly and you are localizing them correctly. Cosmetic testing, it focuses on the visuals of the user interface. For example, do I have everything on the screen when I open the application? Do I have all menus? Do they look fine? Do I have anything that is hidden? All the commands of the original software are present in the target software. Did I delete any menus? Did I delete any functions? You have also to check the dialog boxes in terms of size and in terms of buttons, as I mentioned while I was working on the SDL Pasalo. You have also to make sure that the drop-down menus are working fine. And when you maximize or minimize the software, the different components are still display fine and they are look fine to everybody, to your eyes. So again, cosmetic testing focuses on the visuals of the user interface and on the way the target software is displayed. The last part, which is functionality testing. Again, this is very important because, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes you delete one letter or even a space in a software code and you will get bugs in your software application target language, and the software application will not open or will not function properly in the target language. Functionality testing focus on whether the application still works after localization. So you have to basically install the target software, use it, use every function in it to make sure that the localization process did not introduce any problems and all functions and features are present. You have, you can save the file, you can open files, you can play with the application without any error messages. And can the localized version open files that were produced by the original version of the software? And if you localize a website, do all the links and hyperlinks work in the website? If you click on the menu, will it take you and will it lead you to the target page, the accurate target page? Do spell checkers, style checkers, and dictionary work for the target language and in the target language? So these are the things that a localizer should focus on after producing a localized version of a software application, be it a computer game, a computer program, or even a website. I tried to make it as simple as possible, and I tried to show you things that I think are interesting to those who want to start maybe thinking about localization as a future career path, or even as a way or a place or an arena to do research in translation and localization. Thank you so much. That was it. Again, I am almost done with the content I wanted to cover, and as I know, I only have an hour to cover this topic. Thank you so much. Here are the references, and for those who want to expand and want to know more, I listed three important resources. The first one by Miguel or Bernal Marino. He is one of the very good scholars who worked on video game localization. Jimenez Crispo is the guy for web localization, and we have Joanna and of course our scholars who worked on app localization. Again, I'm going to forward these slides to Dr. Haru, and she inshallah will share the slides and everything with the attendees. Thank you so much, and I think I'll give the floor to Dr. Haru. Please, the floor is yours if you want to start a Q&A session.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, because it's kind of, I don't know what happened. I can't see the video, but if you can hear me, that's good. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Bataineh. Now we can go to Q&A sessions.
Were you able to see the slides that I displayed? The last things
I mean, I don't know what's wrong. I cannot, I would like to enable the chat, but I have no idea this, like it's buffering, you know.
Oh, okay, okay.
But if you can listen to me, that's good. But anyway, let's just continue with the Q&A sessions. Maybe anyone would like to ask questions? Especially I ask my students from the theory class to ask questions. I know it's not an easy lecture about localization. It's something new, perhaps, for a lot of people here in Indonesia. Oh yeah, I haven't introduced you to the head of not the head, the chairpersons of Indonesian Translators Association. Is Pak Indra? Are you still here?
Hey, hello. Thank
Pak
you,
Indra,
Dr.
this is
Batin.
Mohammed Bataineh.
Hi, how are you? Thanks.
Hi, how are you?
Haru.
Nice to meet
Thanks,
you.
Dr. Batin.
Thank you.
So any questions?
Well, just let's give them a few minutes to think about
But
questions.
I do have some questions though. I'm the moderator and I have the questions.
Okay.
So about this software localization, how do we translate on the software exactly? Do we have the software itself, the program in itself, or do we just do it manually? Can you explain that?
Okay. So it depends on the company, and it depends on the translator or the localizer, and it depends, of course, on the project that you are working on. For example, if you are working with HTML files, which is the format for websites, you can easily import your project into which you recommend. You can import your project into a translation environment tool such as MemSource, and you work on the translation environment tool to translate the content. And after that, you can export your content in HTML format where you don't have to do anything other than testing your software. And of course, as I showed you, sometimes you have to fix in the code itself to make it fit in the target language or to make it display the target language correctly. You work on a video game, you will get, unfortunately, a list of linguistic assets, the list of the linguistic components of the video game, where you have to use Microsoft Excel to translate it. Or sometimes you get a Windows application to localize, and in these kind of projects, you can use SDL Pasalo, the one that I showed you, and you will get the chance to see what you are doing while doing it. So it differs from one project to another. Again, several ways to do it. No one ultimate way to execute it. There are, again, it depends on the project itself. It depends on the material that the company provides you to localize. But as I mentioned, the website, the best way to localize a website is by using a translation environment tool, a Windows application, use SDL Pasalo. A video game, unfortunately, you can only do it using a Excel sheet.
Okay. Well, thank you. Harni, can you help me to read the questions in the chat, because I really cannot do anything with it. My screen is frozen.
Yeah, not a problem. So there are a few questions on the chat box, and I can read it to Dr. Bataineh here. So there's one question from Nia, one of our student. So thank you for the presentation. My name is Nia. In my previous company, when localizing the mobile games, we tend to keep the character, monster, and items name in English rather than translate it into Indonesian to keep the originality of its game's universe. Can still we call it a successful localization in this case?
This is a very interesting question, and it is worth a whole paper, and it will be welcomed by the academic arena. Again, when we talk about localization, we should always mention that localization is not only one level. Localization can be done in several levels, and what you did was basically one of the localization levels where you keep the names of the foreign game in the target video game. So this is a decision that has to be taken in either the game developers company or at the localization company. Again, it's not full localization, it is partial localization. But if I want to impose my experience here, we have in Jordan and the Arab world, we have one of the video game companies in Jordan that works on localizing video games from Europe or European developers into Arabic, and they do impose cultural flavors on their video games, on their localized video games, where they included names from the target culture, where they replace characters with other characters wearing traditional clothes from the target culture. So again, it's not an easy way to answer the question because it depends on the budget, because it's going to cost them money in order to change not only the names, but also the characters and the way they look in the video game. So it's not a decision that can be easily taken, and it's not a question that I can answer directly. It is a successful localization if it meets the expectations of the client. Again, we do not judge translation and localization based on our perspective, but based on the perspective of the client. We can always provide our expertise in this area, and we can tell the company, why don't you come up with new names from the target culture? And they have the say. So there's no one straightforward answer. Is it a successful localization project? We don't know, but it is a localization project.
Okay, hope that answers. So we can get to the other question from Ade Indarta. You mentioned that Arabic has different locales. Is there any generic Arabic that will work for all of those locales? Or the company needs to make a call on which local they want to aim?
Well, this is an excellent question. Yes, in the Arab world, we have modern standard Arabic as a language. If your, for example, website does not include any specific cultural elements that need to be localized, then you can use modern standard Arabic in order to localize your website. However, if a specific company, let me remember the name of the grocery store that I went to with Dr. Haru when I was in Indonesia. What was the name of the grocery store, the big one?
Sorry, Haru is not here. I think she's got
You can
kicked.
help me with this, I guess. Like, give me any name for a big grocery store. Do you know Carrefour? Carrefour?
Yeah, Carrefour.
Okay. So if Carrefour wants to open in Jordan, they have to localize their website into Arabic. Plus, they have to provide Jordanian currency, right? Jordanian addresses, because currency in Jordan is completely different from currency in Saudi Arabia, from the currency in Morocco, from Lebanon, from the UAE, for example. So some aspects would not need that deep level of localization of your software product, which again includes the language itself, but some other parts of the software do need a deeper level of localization where you have to adapt it to the local. Okay? And the example that I showed you was the way Jordanian people use dates or format the way they format dates, the way or calendar, the way Saudis use calendar and the style of calendar, and the way Egyptians use calendars or the style of calendar in Egypt. So again, one language, modern standard Arabic, can be understood across the countries. However, three different ways of providing dates and maybe calendars. I hope this answered your question.
Okay. Who? Sorry, I had to be out just now. There's something frozen. Who's asking the questions?
I think we got to the 30 question now.
Okay. Right. There's just another person asking. if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that the software will be able to translate from source language to target language with 0 mistakes.
I
And
think
that
you
would be great. I think it's
are
going to be a big success if it is produced massively. I wonder what the impact will be if it comes to a big hit. If it is, what form the software will be massively produced? What form? Okay. I'm sorry. This is a public lecture, so we don't provide the certificate, everybody. Sorry.
How about copyright? Well, somebody's asking about the copyright of the localizer.
What form would
Unfortunately,
you,
translators and localizers, they do not um, usually have any rights when they produce a target text or a target software, unfortunately, in most of the time. So some companies would acknowledge the localizer, others do not. For example, you have Indonesian version for Windows, I guess, or for Microsoft Word, but you would not know who did the localization to that software. So I don't think that they acknowledge the localizer in some of the projects. Rihanna has a question. Indonesian language is using Roman characters, so users are not dependent on the localized version, and they are more familiar with the English terminologies. Do you think that there is a way to increase the usage of localized software in Indonesia, countries that uses Roman characters? Well, this is a complicated question. Yes, there are so many ways to start thinking about localized products and localized software. I would suggest, and it's not a solution that I can just propose, it's a problem all over the world. Like so many countries rely heavily on foreign applications and foreign software. However, this should be taken a level higher, where policymakers in Indonesia should, or they can basically impose rules on the companies who are going to sell their products in Indonesian market to provide a localized version for their work. And I think that is the case in Saudi Arabia. You cannot sell a specific type of software unless your software speaks Arabic and it's directed to the target customers. So again, this has to do with language planning and language policy in Indonesia, where rule or policymakers can impose restrictions on the flow of applications to the Indonesian customer, and would be very much easy to localize a software from English into Indonesian, because as you mentioned, you're using the Roman characters, and that would be way easier than localizing the same exact software into Arabic.
Mm.
Is there a cheaper alternative software like Pasalo? I don't know, but to the best of my knowledge, software applications or software localization application are expensive because, as you know, people who are producing software, they have the money, so nobody's going to produce a application to translate software and offer it for free. So my answer is I don't think so. Poetry Ariane says, thank you for the explanation. You mentioned that localizer should have proper knowledge of coding besides capable of providing high quality translation. My question is, what programming language should a translator master know to localize? Well, the problem or the answer is not straightforward again. However, localizer should be flexible enough to learn things. For example, they should be able to search for problems online and to be able to solve them. For example, if you don't know how to fix a specific technical problem because you don't know coding, localizer should be at least able to search for a problem and should be able to understand how to fix the problem in a logical way. So you don't have to have excellent knowledge in coding, for example, in C++ or any HTML, but at least you should know the basics of at least HTML and C programming language. Just the basics. Know what variables are, know how to insert certain codes in order to fix certain problems. So you don't have excellent knowledge in the programming language, but the thing that I want you to focus on is to be flexible, to be able to search for solutions and to apply solutions to fix problems in your localization projects. Dewi says, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that the software will be able to translate from source language to target language, zero mistakes. No, actually the application will not translate. You as a localizer will use the software to localize it. You will, let me show you what I mean. So you will use this software in order to localize an application. The problems that I was talking about actually were not or are not linguistic problems. I was talking about functionality problems and cosmetic problems. If you use such a software to localize an internationalized application, you will have zero or minimum number of functionality problems and cosmetic problems. But the translation itself depends on the localizer himself or herself and on his or her linguistic skills. Thank you. Mega has a question. Thank you for the explanation, Mohammed. Missed a bit of the previous slides. It's about website localization level 0. I see that level 1 includes content translation only. So what kind of localization includes in level 0? Well, level 0 does not include any level of localization. However, it is a version for the target market. Again, the website that is displayed was taken from the Indonesian Starbucks website. This website was dedicated for Indonesian people. However, it was not produced using Indonesian language or local colors. However, you might find addresses for Starbucks. You might find images from Indonesian Starbucks. So this is what we mean by level 0, where we still have the source language on the website.
It means there's no translation, no localization, right?
Yes, basically. Well, it would be zero localization because those who will not be able to read the language will not be able to access information on the website. So this is basically, why do we localize? To make it available for those who live in a specific locale and speak a specific language. Okay.
There's another question there. Do you have difficulties in localizing onomatopoeia words in Arabic?
I think we do. However, I saw some interesting translations by fans, those who translate comic books and translate manga into Arabic. Yeah, and I think it's not easy to translate these words into languages because you have to look for an equivalence in the target language. So yeah, however, again, some fans produced excellent translations for these words when they translated manga or Japanese manga and comic books. I hope this answered the question.
Yeah, that is onomatopoeia. I think it happens a lot in Japanese. I don't know what in Arabic. Do you have a lot of these onomatopoeia words?
We have, like any other language, however, we don't use them that much in
Yeah,
writing.
not as much, right? Yeah. But when it is a sound,
That's a
can it
question.
be presented with the Arabic letters?
What was the question again? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
If it's the sound, like onomatopoeia, that usually it's about sounds, right?
Yeah.
Can it be represented by Arabic letters?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, again, we don't have like standards for this, as you know. Nobody has, I believe. It depends on the function of the work that you are producing, but mostly it would either be replaced by a word, like a real word, or a sound.
Mm.
And as you know, in English, for example, the dog sound is woof woof, for example. In Arabic is no, it's ow ow, for example. So we have differences.
In
So they
Indonesia,
try
we call it guguk.
Mhm. What is it in Indonesia?
Guguk.
Google?
Uh,
Hey, interesting. I wouldn't tell
it's a dog's bark, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're
Interesting.
saying?
I wouldn't tell that's the bark in Indonesia. The sound itself.
What we have meong, which is the sounds of the cat. What about in Arabic?
I think it's meow.
Meow. It's almost like English.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, everybody, do you have any more questions? Do you agree or not, Mohammed, that this localization applies transcreation or more adaptation? Because it tries to localize, right? So it
Right.
will be target language oriented, definitely, right?
That's right. But I can draw as a line between localization and transcreation. Transcreation, as you know, you understand the message
Right.
and you rewrite the message in the target language. And you can see that clearly in McDonald's advertisement. Let me show you something if you're interested. I think I have a very interesting example. But localization, no, you have the message, but you have to replace certain things in the message. But in transcreation, sometimes you end up with changing the whole thing. Everything would be changed, even the words.
In the localization.
No, in transcreation.
Oh, in transcreation. Okay.
But they belong to the same place where we are focusing on the target language and the target culture. Okay, I think I have it here. Again, from the Arab culture. Can you see my slides?
Yep.
So this ad was produced for a specific culture, and then we have the Arabic ad. Same exact setting, different clothing for the Gulf people. It's one thing. Another example that is very interesting.
But what is he looking at?
Well, he just thanking the guy here, and he's thanking the guy here. I tried to capture the same exact moment in the video. Another example is the following. Just let me share my other screen.
There's something happening at McDonald's.
Well, this ad is trying to advertise spicy food in McDonald's.
Okay.
There's something happening at McDonald's. Spice face. Oh, There it is.
The
New
Caucasian
jalapeno
cannot
McChicken.
stand it.
See? So this is the way Canadian people express hot feelings, I mean, from hot food. But when they have this message rewritten in Arabic, when they transcreated the message, look at the way Arabs express the same exact feeling. See? Same exact message, different ways of expressing feelings. So this is what I would call transcreation.
That's more expressive, yeah.
More expressive. This is the way Arabs would express specific feelings. But compared to Canadian people, and as you can see, international people in Canada. So you got blonde person, and then an Asian person, and an Indian person at the same time, as you can see. But they're quiet and expressing the same exact feeling.
Right.
Yeah. So this is transcreation, where you ignore the whole thing in the source and rewrite and recreate everything from scratch. So on localization, we don't go
That
deep.
far.
That far, yes, exactly.
But I thought that when you translate a commercial, that's also part of the localization.
Definitely, yes. Yeah, I do agree. That's part of localization. However, it's like a deeper level of localizing or domesticating a product. Yep.
Sorry, there are some questions in the chat, Mohammed. Putri asks, there are many mobile games I play that the linguistic asset not localized, but I'm able to buy the item using rupiah. Do you think the games are localized?
No, they're not,
They're not.
unfortunately. No.
As long as if there's no language in Indonesian, for instance, then it is not localized, right?
Right.
Okay, another question from Nia. This is also one of my students. How to tackle the character limitation when translating the dialogue or UI, what is this? UI, UX text?
Yeah, this is a very
localizing the software.
So she's asking basically about the buttons and how can we tackle the character limitation. For example, a pop-up message would allow you to insert only one word for the equivalent. Let me show you this in my slides. For example, she's talking about the number of characters that I can insert here. Again, it depends on the software application itself. If it has been internationalized, which means that the software will accommodate any number of letters that you insert in the target software, then you're good and you're safe and you're fine. Again, if the software itself was or has been internationalized, the code itself was programmed and software as a program in a way that would allow you as a localizer to expand the buttons and insert as many characters as you want, then you're fine. In some occasions, you cannot insert specific number of characters. You have a specific limit where you can only insert 5 letters, 6 letters. And these occasions, you have to find a solution. You either come up with one word that would explain the concept in the target language. For example, here we have 2 words with so many characters for the word default in Arabic. But because the program was internationalized, I was able to resize the button. Look at the size here. It's bigger, right, in the target language. If it's not internationalized and if the localizer is unable to expand the button, I myself would go with one word, which is the second word, see, to express the concept. But still, the concept would be understood. However, it's not the best translation. I hope this answered the question.
Okay, I hope that answered the question, And then we have another questions. This is according to Muhammad Taufik Akbar, according to his observation, it seems that the componential analysis or analyzing semantic fields is quite helpful in localization to some extent. Are there any other linguistic approaches that are useful to help the transcreation and localization process?
Okay, this is a very interesting question. Well, to be honest, and from my background, localization, localizers, and the analysis of localization should not stick to the linguistic approach of localizing source and target, basically. They depart from what we call the functionalist approach to localization, to translation. So when we analyze transcreation or localization, we have to think about the function. And we have to think about, of course, Scopus theory in translation studies, the function of the target software. And your analysis should be based on the function and whether the target application or the target advertisement met the expectations of the target audience and fulfilled the function of the target software or advertisement in the target language or not. So in the analysis of localized products or transcreated products, we focus, and in most of the time, we ignore the source, but we, again, try to adapt it, to recreate it in the target language. But if you want to analyze localized products in order to teach localization and to conduct a comparative analysis between the source software application and the target software application in order to show how localizers worked, then yes, you can go back to the source application and compare to the target. However, as a practitioner, you should not focus on the source. You get the message, you get the function, and then you basically translate or localize in the target language based on the function that the target application should have in the target language. I hope this answered the question.
Yeah, okay, that's the answer to Muhammad topic. I hope that's clear enough. Anyone else would like to ask any question? We still have around 30 minutes. So that's still quite plenty of time to ask questions. Or any of my students maybe who hasn't asked questions? What's difficult is that maybe not many of us have the experience to do the localization itself.
Right, right.
So we're still kind of imagining it, I think. You know what I mean? But if you already get your hands on the localization itself, probably it would be a lot easier. If I'm not mistaken, Indra, the chairperson of Indonesian Translators Association, just mentioned that this kind of industry has not happened a lot in our country. So it's just quite limited. It's usually involved foreign agency, to localize something from abroad, usually from English to Indonesians. And some of my students also, they are now writing the thesis about game localization. I remember one of my students did that. Okay. Oh, and my student Reina would like to ask about localization project management. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure. Reina, go ahead. What do you
Yeah, so based on my previous experience, ideally on a software update, only new strings should be translated. But in some cases, why in the new versions, old linguistic assets came back? Is it just human error, or because it's the translator need to translate it again, the old strings?
No. Well, I teach software and software localization and translation project management, and I conducted certain project management activities previously. If the first version of the software was translated using a translation environment tool, then, which is usually done this way, then every string and its translation will be saved in the translation memory. So the company would not pay and would not spend money on translating things that they have already translated and paid for. So they would use and they would send the translation memory to the vendor or to the translator or the localizer to use while he's working on the translation. So this would ensure greater consistency. The translator will use the content and the translation from previous software. The company would not pay for the segments that they have already translated and paid for, and it would definitely save their time. So as a project manager, before executing the translation project, you usually ask yourself, have we ever done a similar project? Do we have a similar translation for the same client from previous projects? If yes, then you can use the previous assets to help you produce the translation of that new update or that new software. Because as you know, the update will include a limited number of functions, but the majority of the linguistic assets will be translated and localized in the first version of the software or during the localization process of the first version of the software.
Yes.
So again, using translation technologies will help you so much. And most of the big giants or most of the very good translation and localization agencies would force the localizer and the translator to use translation memory in order to save their work to be used in other occasions.
Okay. Is that clear, Reina?
Yes, thank you.
All
I
right.
think you have a question mark somewhere. Very good.
Yeah, but I mean, sometimes some old strings came back, so the translator need to translate it again. So why is it happening?
That's good. I mean, this means more money to the translator.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the way I see it. I mean, if I work for a specific company and they provided a new project that I have to localize or translate, and I know that I have done this in a previous occasion, I would use my translation memory and I would not tell them. So I translate and I get money for the
Yes, yes.
previous
All right.
Okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
There's still another questions. This is also from my student, Fatma. She said that she saw a MACD logo in Sedona, part of the US, is changed into turquoise instead of the yellow one as its original color. Do you think that this is part of localization?
It could be localization, and that could be the favored color for that specific locale, or McDonald's might be celebrating something for that specific locale. It could be, yes, for a specific occasion or for a specific reason. Yeah.
Maybe that will be familiar with people there, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And then another question from Husna. How to start practicing to be a localizer from zero? This is very interesting, and then she
Yes,
doesn't
it
know
is
where to start.
question. You have to decide whether you're going to be a web localizer, software localizer, or video game localizer, because you have to develop 3 different set of skills. I would suggest you have to make your you have to search for the most required skill in the Indonesian market or for your language pair, and then search for online courses. And I think Coursera provides 3 courses on this, and they are as cheap as $10, I think. They provide one for those who want to learn web localization, another one for game, and another one for, I don't know if they have one for software localization, but I know that they have one for game localization and one other one for web localization. What's the content? I don't know. Will they help you? I don't know. But one way to start this is by looking for online courses if you don't have an institution to teach you or to train you on this.
May I know how much do they pay for this localization? Is it by words, by what?
It's usually done by hour.
Oh, by hour.
Yes. Depending on the, again, when you localize a software, you're not only transferring language. Sometimes you have to take screenshots from the target software in order to replace those in the help files. If you know what I mean. You have to run the software itself and take screenshots from the software and replace those in the source help file. When you translate software, you have to translate the help files, right? Where they teach users how to do something. So in order to teach you how to do something in Arabic, I have to replace the image that showed how to click on something with an image from the localized software. You know what I mean? So in these occasions, they charge per hour. Sometimes they charge per word, but it's expensive. Localization is expensive. Yeah.
How much is it per hour?
I would say $25 to $35.
But how do they charge us by hours if we work remotely?
There are several ways. Some of them would ask you to use their online platform where they have like an automatic system where they record the time you spend on working on the certain specific task. Or sometimes they ask you just to provide an estimate, or you have to calculate your hours yourself and provide them with an invoice.
So there's a possibility that the work is done online so that the company could, monitor how many hours that you have worked, right?
Well, from my experience, I worked as a localizer, and I used to provide them with the hours I worked on their software.
I see.
I would pay for that. Well, sometimes they have like estimate. They would know that this type of test would take from 5 to 7 hours. So
you just, okay, so they just trust you, giving you how many hours, and then you arrange it yourself.
Yeah, it depends on the company and the project. For some languages, they don't have experience. For example, I don't think that there would be some people or many people who would know how long would it take to localize a specific software to Indonesian. So they would estimate that it may take up to so and so hours, but the translator and the localizer would have the say in this.
Okay. I'd like to hear from the translators, the practitioners who have experience in localization. Maybe the members of the Indonesian Translators Association. I know that Pak Ade Indarta has asked questions to you before. Maybe Pak Indra, Lucia, I don't know anyone else here from HPI. HPI is the Indonesian Translators Association. Maybe you would like to share your experience. But sorry, there's one question in the chat, the new one. So based on your experience, when would you use the international version intentionally? When the local version actually exists?
Well, again, this depends on the user. Well, I myself use two operating systems. Let me show you what I mean. This is my Windows. I use it to work and localize Arabic software. It's all in Arabic, see? So this is the localized version of Windows. I intend to use it because I have the language code set perfectly to Arabic. So any software or any application would know that I'm using Arabic software and would tweak itself to the locale and to the language. But for my Mac, which is the other operating system here, and you can see it now, I'm using Mac. It's all in English, as you can see, because I don't use it to localize or translate. Again, it depends on the purpose, why you're using the application or the operating system. But I would say, again, if the localized version is excellent, I would recommend using it because it's your language. And again, this would help companies support the localized versions or the coming versions of their application to be localized, of course, in the target language. So it's a kind of supporting the language and kind of supporting and letting companies know that we use the localized version. Again, it depends on the user, depends on so many other things.
Is that possible that the localization is done by machine?
That's a
Not
complicated.
possible? At least the language.
Well, yes, they use it, by the way.
Mm.
Localization or web localization, or some big giant companies, they use machine translation to localize websites and to replace images with others, by the way. Yeah, there are some smart systems that would help. Again, you always need a human localizer to
The
support
results, right?
the process, yes. But yes, it's possible, unfortunately.
Mega asks,
It's not
what
as
is the
perfect.
most challenging project or software that you have localized?
The most challenging thing in software localization would be localizing a software that is not internationalized.
That is
You
not.
produce a perfect translation,
Mm.
but the language or the target language would not be applied to the target software. You work hard on producing an excellent version, but because the code or the software itself was not prepared to handle Arabic, you face problems with the target language, and it happened. So we had to rewrite part of the code in order to accommodate Arabic and in order to read Arabic. But unfortunately, we had some minor cosmetic issues, but we released the product without changing these minor cosmetic issues because we could not change it. If you want to change it and to fix it, we have to rework the code, and that is big money. So big translation project or big localization projects sometimes are very overwhelming, where you have 30 or 40 translators working together on one project. In these kind of projects, things get complicated, and consistency is a real challenge there in these kind of projects. Game localization is very interesting and challenging at the same time because you have to translate using Excel sheets where you don't have access to the visuals of the video game itself. For example, the word left as a word, it could mean X players left, okay? Or X players left, which means left in the room, in the game. So in these occasions, the lack of context is problematic.
Okay. Is Pak Toto here? You know, Pak Toto is our head of the linguistic department.
Yes. I met him last time.
Yeah, the last time. Are you here, Pak Toto? Hello. Maybe not. We have Ibu Professor Setiawati. This is one of the professor from the Faculty of Humanities in Department of Linguistics. Hello, Ibu Setiawati, are you there?
Yes, Haru.
Hello,
Let me introduce you to Bataineh, Ibu.
Hello.
Hi.
Maybe you have question, Ibu?
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. It's very interesting, but it's a new field for me because I'm linguist.
Oh,
New
I
for
see.
everybody also, I think.
Yeah, I think it's also new to people in translation because this field actually was developed in the IT domain. I mean, people who produce software came up with this domain in order to sell their products and their software across the globe. So it wasn't invented or it wasn't developed in translation studies.
Yeah. Yeah, localization is brandly new to translation. Hattie, Pak Indra, do you have any questions maybe? Hattie, are you still here? No voice. Ririn, I have my friend Ririn here. She's working sometime with the agency from abroad. I had to ask question in the chat. Do you consider a localizer as a copywriter as well?
Well, we don't have actually to specify the localizer as a copywriter or as a translator or as a doctor. Let's think of him as an expert in the target culture and locale. At some point, yes, he works as a copywriter. In others, no, he is just a localizer where he tries to provide a localized version of a specific software in the target language. He would do some copyright work sometimes, especially in web localization. No, he's not a copywriter, I mean, per se.
Yeah, it's a localizer, just localizer, right? A copywriter will have the origin.
So many things.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Diandra asked question here. In the Indonesian version of Spotify music application, I noticed that the app is translated into Indonesian without exactly adapting the contents or commercial, etc., to suit local culture or taste. In such cases, are these styles of localization usually part of the strategic decision or simply lack of resources? Because as with the Indonesian Starbucks, for example, some products up to use level 0 localization for its target market.
Well, again, this is a very interesting question to answer by doing a research, honestly. So if the user interface is Indonesian or is provided in Indonesian, it has an Indonesian version, the commercials, I think, should also, well, this has nothing to do with localization, honestly, because sometimes you play a video on YouTube and you get an advertisement or a commercial for an Indonesian company, for example. But this does not relate to the work of the localizer. However, it's related to the way the commercials are streamed on the on the application itself. So the application will be localized independently without even thinking about the commercials that would be broadcasted over the application. However, Spotify should, I think they have a problem in this matter because the commercial should be taken from the target culture, which is Indonesian, and should broadcast commercials from this domain in order to make money, honestly. But I don't know why they are doing this. I mean, I have never seen a similar case where you have a localized version, but the commercials are from a completely different domain or from a different, completely from different locale. No, it doesn't have anything to do with localization, but it has something to do with the linking of the application to the commercials.
Okay. I hope that answers the questions, Dian. All right, we have like 5 minutes left, and if anyone still have any question, maybe we could still have around 1 or 2 more questions.
Very interesting questions. Very interesting questions.
Nurdiana, do you have any questions?
And I do encourage MA students to start thinking about either working as localizers or even researching localization in Indonesian context.
Mm-hmm. But without the industry, I don't think that will be, I mean, yeah, people usually encourage to do something because they know they will get paid, or, you know, there's a job about it. But when the job is scarce about this localization in Indonesia, I doubt that, you know.
Yeah, again, it depends on the locale.
Yeah. Okay. I am trying to make the photos. Not successful yet.
Want to take screenshots for the
the screenshots. Can we take the?
Yes, I can take some and send it to you.
All right, everybody, can you show up your face? We're gonna have some photo sessions. Maybe you can do this. Okay, I will say cheese. Ready? Sorry, Mohammed. Are you helping me or not?
Yes, I took one already. I'm gonna take another one. 1, 2.
Okay.
Another one.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, that was great.
All right. Thank you so much, Mohammed, Bataineh, for your explanation. Despite of, you know, this is something new for all of us. I think that we have, well, at least get the introductions of what the software or localization is about. I hope somehow we can continue the program later on in a form of like, I don't know, workshop or training, because a lot of people will definitely wanted to learn further about this. And yeah, the questions are very, very good as well. Yeah. Thank you
So
for
much. I actually enjoyed this
asking
session. I
questions.
enjoyed the attendees. And I can tell from the questions that I received and from the comments that there are some and very excellent seeds, and I'm sure they will add so much to the current studies in localization. And inshallah, in the future, we'll see studies and practices in localization in Indonesia. It has been a great pleasure meeting everybody. Thank you so much for the.
Thank you so much, yeah, for you, Muhammad, Bataineh, and all other people who joined this program. Tomorrow we have another program actually with another guest lecturer from Australia. We have published also this announcement in Facebook. So this is also, you know, in the occasions of the anniversary of the Faculty of Humanities, Bataineh. So you're part of the lecture series. Okay, so See you, Bataineh. We'll collaborating next semester. Okay. Bye bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. And I hope to meet you all soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.